Carter, how do you want to handle the start of the meeting? It sounds like Ross was having issues.
Yeah, do we have a quorum without Ross?
Check. Yes.
Yeah, we can do that. Although it looks like
I think
we also have
a few members
somebody
dropped out. Let's see.
Oh, they're back. Okay.
Okay. Like we had a quorum and then
bouncing around.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just give me a second. I'm needing to pull up the COVID protocol wording. Okay, so until Ross gets here, we'll just get the meeting started. This is the first meeting of the Historic Preservation Committee for 2022. So this is the annual meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order because we do have a quorum. We have in attendance Peter Daniel Giddick, Diane Brown Towns, Liz Russell, Nancy Takahashi, and Pete. You're separate. I got that last name correct. So we do have a quorum. It is 4:37. And let's go through the announcements. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20-A16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. Opportunities for public access to this meeting are posted on the county's website at the county calendar. Public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded, will be made available on the county's website. This online meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. And just remind everybody who is in attendance today, it is best to keep yourself on mute until it's your turn to speak. You can always raise your hand if you're finding it difficult to make your comments. Okay, so I think that we are ready. Are we still without Ross?
Yeah, we have Carter, but I have a member of the public with their hand raised.
Okay.
Do we have any new members that I'm not aware of?
I'm not, I don't.
I got you, Supervisor Kirkley, because I didn't have you before, but I got you. Yeah. Okay. Well, would you like to let this lady speak, or do you want me to wait?
We have no way to go ahead. Promote her for a moment. Let's see what's going on.
All right, Becky, you can speak if you unmute yourself. Becky, can you unmute yourself?
It's actually Craig. I'm on my wife's computer.
That's fine.
That could be why I didn't know you. Okay, I will move you over and rename you.
Right. Okay. We picked up a couple more members, so great. Take a moment to welcome B as our board liaison. Thanks for being here, B. And just to note, Jenny is with us also tonight. She's just not on picture. So the first order of business is to elect officers for the new year. Can we have some nominations for chairperson for the committee for 2022?
Do we know if Ross wanted to remain on as chair? I mean, this is a little awkward.
Yeah.
Ross said that he would, but he was happy to have anyone else who's interested to in having the position to.
Well, I would be pleased to submit a recommendation for Ross Stevens as chair.
Is there a second?
I second that, yeah.
Okay, we need a vote. Can we just show hands? All in favor of Ross for chairperson? And I can't see Craig.
I didn't catch who seconded that.
I think that was Carter.
Great.
So it looks like it is a unanimous vote. Craig, can you unmute yourself and let me know if you voted yes for that?
Yes.
Great, unanimous vote. Okay, so now we need a nomination for vice chair. Any nominations?
Is Liz precluded because of her role as secretary, or can she be vice chair?
After we elect the vice chair, we'll be electing a secretary for the year. So technically at this particular moment in time, she's not secretary.
I'd nominate Liz.
Is there a second for that? See, Nancy is seconding that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat who that was for?
That was a nomination for Liz for vice chair.
Happy to second.
And Liz, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, gladly.
Great, great. Okay, so let's have a vote then. Can we see hands for Liz for vice chair? And it looks like, again, we have everyone voting yes. And Craig, once more, can you unmute and tell me what your vote was?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So that's a unanimous vote for Liz for vice chair. And finally, we're at secretary. Can we have a nomination for secretary? Well, not that this will encourage extra nominations or acceptances, but the primary duty of the secretary is to take minutes. Nominations?
Does anyone desire the role?
Would you like to take a stab at it?
Minutes is something that I have experience with, and yeah, I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting traction or getting my knowledge up to speed on some of the other areas. I would be willing and happy to serve. If someone else is interested, I'm happy to defer to another candidate as well, though.
That's great news. Liz, would you like to nominate Pete for secretary?
Yes, I would nominate Pete as secretary.
Is there a second? Diane, I saw your hand first. Diane seconds that. And let's have a vote. Let's see hands for Pete for secretary. And I see everyone's hands. Pete, I assume you're abstaining because you don't feel like voting for yourself. And one last time, Craig, maybe not last time, Craig.
Yes.
Your vote is yes. Awesome. Thank you all for that. Okay. Next item of business. We still don't have Ross. Thank you all for accepting those nominations. As Ross is still not, oh, actually, Liz, you're vice chair. You get to take over in Ross's absence, so you can take over now.
Okay, so I'll
Have
try
the
to,
agenda handy?
yeah, I'll try to just keep taking minutes for this as well, because I've got it all in front of me. So next on the agenda is to adopt the rules of procedure, which were linked to the agenda. Do we have any discussion on, do we need to have any discussion on those rules of procedure? Okay.
The only discussion would be if anybody had proposals for changes to the rules.
Okay, well, if there's no discussion, would anyone be willing to submit a motion for adopting those rules of procedure? And I see Nancy talking.
Nancy, was that a motion?
So moved.
So it looks and sounds like two members are trying to help out here. Was that a motion from Peter? Did you have a second from Nancy?
I have Peter as presenting the motion, and Nancy, do you want to second that for the record? Look, there we go. We got this.
Second, sorry.
Right.
Do I call the vote, Margaret? All in favor? Okay,
Yeah.
all in favor? Hands? Any opposed? Okay, it passes. Let me just write down that, Peter.
That looked, just for the record, that was a unanimous vote.
Okay, next we have the approval of our minutes from, I believe it was November when we last met. Is that right? Going
October.
from memory.
October's minutes.
Oh, it was October. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Okay, a second. Okay, I got Diane with a second. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, that is a unanimous vote with and okay, so into the content of the meeting. We have on the agenda a staff update on the historic marker program.
Yes, thank you, Liz. And I see Ross has joined us. Hello, Ross. Okay. So I guess I'll just take a little step back since B, this is your first meeting with us, a little history on what the committee's been working on. So the committee, mostly through the markers subcommittee, has been working to get some historical markers installed in the county. And this began as part of the community remembrance project with the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And just to summarize really quickly, many of the subjects that were under consideration really have local significance as opposed to state or national significance. And so the committee has been considering and beginning to draft a local marker program. And so the work got to a point where we needed some clarification on direction before moving forward any further. And we had planned to follow up with the committee on that issue in November, but that meeting got canceled, and then we didn't meet in December. And so sorry, everyone, for the delay there. But we'll try and do that little update right now. I have already updated the marker subcommittee. So here's the direction that we've received. So a local historic marker program would need to be endorsed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors. So a proposal for such a program can be presented for consideration by the board in time for the next budget cycle. So the request would be for the program and its associated funding. The funding would include whatever dollars would be needed for the markers themselves, whatever associated costs there would be, And based on conversations I've had with the subcommittee so far, I'm thinking that the subcommittee would be recommending that there would be funding needed for a staff person, either part-time or something else. Not sure exactly what, that's to be worked out. So the committee should continue to draft the proposal that they've been working on, to draft that, the parameters of that program, and to finalize it over the next several months. There are items that the program should take into consideration and steps to be followed to get that request to the board in the appropriate format. Kim Biasioli, our natural resources manager, has recently gone through that process, presenting stream health initiatives to the Board of Supervisors for adoption. I think we can learn a lot from what we follow to get there, and I've invited Kim to attend subcommittee meeting, which is at the end of this meeting, to share with us the process that she went through. Just have an informal discussion about that so we can learn from what she's already done. And then after that, I think I would recommend to the subcommittee that we work to get a schedule together so that we can keep things on track to get that program drafted and get all the steps done so that with the next budget cycle, we'll be ready to make that request for the board. Are there any questions on that? Any comments?
When would that budget cycle, when is that? What are we shooting for?
Well, our budget cycles seem to go constantly, but what I would recommend is that the committee have their all their work done by the end of the summer, so that it'll be in good shape when the very beginning of the next budget is started to be discussed in the fall and winter. But we will work out those dates more specifically, and with that scheduling step that I recommending. Keith?
Yeah, I do have a question. You mentioned a staff person.
Mm-hmm.
Could you go into a little bit further detail?
Well, again, this is very early. The committee hasn't completely drafted the parameters of the programs, but it seems it will be enough work that will be involved to manage the program is beyond the capacity of the committee itself, and staff time will be required, and we do have staff time to cover that.
So it would be a one-year staff program? Would it be a FTE? Would it be ongoing? I mean,
it would be on. Well, again, the program hasn't been drafted yet, but
yeah.
The committee, I assume the subcommittee believes it's an ongoing project. It's not just markers for a year, but an ongoing project. And I don't think it'd be a full-time employee, but I don't know what, how many hours it would be.
Okay, so just questioning because since I'm new, you've put up markers before, correct?
The subcommittee has completed a few markers. There are a couple that are also still in process, and this has gone through, this is part of the Community Remembrance Project through the Office of Equity and Inclusion.
Okay, but how many markers have we put up? And is this something separate because this is local? So what you're saying from what I'm hearing is there are state markers that are put up that are paid for by the state, and then no,
the state does not pay for them. No.
Okay, so all the markers that I've seen in Albemarle County were all put in place and paid for by the county?
The ones that the committee has been involved with most recently have been funded by the county through that program that I mentioned. The other markers that you see out and about could be paid for by individuals, other organizations. It could be any number of people or groups.
Okay, so not to take, not to take up the rest of the group's time because everybody has this information except me. Maybe you could just send me the number of markers in the past, what you have done, what has been installed, what's in the pipeline, so to speak.
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions on the mark?
I was just going to say, we have a pretty good working document, sort of a brain dump of the evolution of from the Community Remembrance Project, which was sort of a challenge presented to this committee to develop these 5 markers. And so it sort of talks about that status and where we are with those 5 markers. And then, you know, kind of moves into how we would hope to build a more permanent local marker program. And I also just want to say, we have a lot of community interest. We get, you know, inquiries from members of the community. So I definitely think it's something that, you know, I hope it's something that the Board of Supervisors would consider.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the markers at this point? No? Okay. I did have one other item that I wanted to address the committee on. The annual meeting should typically also include the adoption of the regular meeting schedule, the day and time of the regular monthly meetings. And I'd like to recommend that we might want to defer that until the February meeting. The reason for that is this topic that I want to address. I know you all in October talked a bit about the need to update the top 10 list. I wasn't at the October meeting, but B, I'm going to give you a little background on this too, since you're new to us. What we call the top 10 list is the list of priority recommendations that that came out of the Historic Preservation Plan when that plan was first adopted and the Historic Preservation Committee was first made permanent. Basically the tasks that the committee has been focusing on work over really the past 20 years. So it's my understanding that at the October meeting, members were asking how we might go about updating that top 10 list because a number of those items have been completed. Some have been completed, but will be ongoing indefinitely, and it's been quite a while. So, we staff agrees that it's time to update that list, but changes to that list would need Board of Supervisors approval. On that list come from the Historic Preservation Plan, and plan is over 20 years old, so it's really time to for that to be updated as well. So what we would like to do is the update of the Historic Preservation Plan, the upcoming comprehensive plan update that's already scheduled, and is the topic of historic preservation would fall into phase 2 of that comp plan update, scheduled for late fall or early winter of this year. So there's a bit of time before we get to that, but there is work that would need to be done to prepare for that comp plan work. Some of it would need to be done by staff, but there would be committee input needed on some of that also. So since we can't update the top 10 list immediately, it may be that some committee members may not have projects to be actively working on. And so you might want to think about changing up the regular meeting schedule. For example, the full committee may not need to meet every month, and maybe the subcommittees could be using more of that time for their meetings and to get their project work done. So it's something to think about. Happy to take questions and comments on that now, but it may be something that the group wants to consider, and then at the February meeting, having more in-depth discussion on meeting schedule should be adopted at that time. I'll stop there and ask for your questions.
Margaret, I think that's a great idea. And, it just occurs to me that it would be great to get some of our newer board committee members involved, maybe in a, more focused on, if they're interested, that discussion around the comp plan. I mean, we all want to look at it, but, I would encourage people to dive in to the opportunities where they are.
Yeah, and I don't know if the committee wants to, form a subcommittee that focuses on the comp plan coordination. That might be an option. Other questions or comments on comp plan work or meeting schedule? Do members want to think on that for a while? And do you want to do the meeting, have the annual meeting schedule next month, or do you feel like you want to do that now?
Margaret, I'm sorry, you are going to have to refresh me on what our annual meeting is.
Yeah, sorry, the schedule for the year is simply what it's been for the past several years. The fourth Monday of the month, beginning at 4:30. Well, we're meeting virtually, but if we weren't meeting virtually, the meetings would be at the office building. So it's just the regular meeting schedule.
Sorry, I'm going to profess my ignorance here. Could you talk, Margaret, a little bit more about this comprehensive plan and what that means in terms of, structuring this committee's work?
Yeah, it's a big conversation, and so we might be better off providing everyone some background information for a more in-depth discussion next time. Okay. Ross, could I ask you, sorry, to unmute yourself? We've got some background noise coming from you. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so the Historic Preservation Plan is a component of the comprehensive plan, but the comprehensive plan also has other chapters that talk about historic resources, cultural resources, scenic resources, conservation more broadly. And so what we're thinking is, because the Historic Preservation Plan hasn't been updated for so long, we'd like to consider its update as all those other areas of the comprehensive plan are also being considered, so we can have more coordination and get some more pointed goals and objectives, and then refocus the committee's work on those newly identified goals and objectives.
Margaret, are you the staff person heading up that endeavor? The preservation chapter?
Well, that's a good question. And this is really the very beginning of the conversation, since so we haven't completely filled out all those roles, but I would imagine that I would have a part in that for sure.
Would
Hopefully,
it make sense to have some members of the committee to form a subcommittee to work with you to assess this? And be prepared maybe for our next meeting just to talk about it, in the most general sense, so it makes sense, so that we can start the discussion. Kind of to start next month, when we could get a group looking into what the new comprehensive plan is.
Yeah, That's what I'm suggesting. I think it might be easier to have a subcommittee to focus on that work. I'm not sure how much I can pull together for a subcommittee in the next month, but as I said, we're just really, it's just been in the last week that we've been thinking about this. So we've got a little bit of organization at our end before we can make it. I don't want to waste your time. It just, so we've got a little bit of work to do to get that up and running.
Well, maybe it would be good to just have something, a general discussion at our next meeting. And then from there, we can talk about how we might break off into a subcommittee.
Yep, very good. Are there other questions or comments on that topic at this point? Is everybody good with waiting until the February meeting to adopt the schedule for the year?
What day is the February meeting, the 21st or the 28th?
May 8th.
Yeah, it's the
Because
28th.
President's Day, I guess, is the 21st, so I hope it's 28th.
The fourth Monday is the 28th.
Great.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you all for your comments. And I think I'm done for now.
Ross, I'll let you take over as chair. I was filling in as vice chair. Oh, you've been nominated to chair. Congratulations. You're muted.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So we just did the staff updates.
Correct.
So, okay.
I'll jump in. We didn't have any discussion items. I'm not sure if unless any of the committee members had anything they wanted to discuss. There wasn't any regularly scheduled discussion item. So next item would be work group updates if no members have any discussion items.
Okay. Does anybody have any discussion items?
No, Ross, but you're going to have to not shuffle those papers around your microphone. It's creating a lot of
Okay. I'm sorry. This is
bad
a
noise.
new computer. This is a new computer, so please tell me.
It's something with the microphone and the paper shuffling.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Well, let's go to work group updates. Heritage Education and Tourism. Any updates there?
Well, Margaret, thank you for the update on our process. And I think that's really clear, to know that what we're working towards, which is to present a program to ultimately to the Board of Supervisors. Do we have any updates on the status of our markers? I know I've been in touch a little bit with just, maybe as a reminder, we have a installed marker at the Albemarle site of the Albemarle Training School. That is a local Albemarle branded marker. So it will look different. It looks different than those DHR state markers. We are also working on a local marker for the Riverview Farm, which is the homestead of Hugh Carr and Mary Carr Greer. Nancy, do you have any update on the status of that marker?
Margaret, you might have a little bit more detail, but I worked with Margaret and the order for the sign has been put in. Of course, we have about a 3-month wait, I think. That was reported last December. We're probably not expecting to get it until March? If that.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I haven't heard anything since.
And then, of course, we have the marker, which was approved by the department. So all of the markers have to be approved by the Department of Historic Resources. But if they are local markers, that review is not as complicated, arduous. Margaret, you can jump in if I'm incorrect, but the marker for the Union Run Baptist Church was, we deemed that worthy of a state marker. So it is of regional, it meets the criteria of regional, national, statewide significance, certainly. So that actually will be a DHR marker, although it's been sort of funneled through this committee. Diane Brown Towns and Betsy Batten worked very closely with the congregation there, and it was approved maybe in October or
December.
Is that right?
10th or 9th or 10th. It was that Thursday, during that Thursday's second stage approval meeting. So, yeah.
And there was an article in the paper about various statewide highway markers dedicated to, I'm not sure if they were all churches, but topics of African-American history. So we're, excited to have that marker underway, and the county will still pay for it. Let's see. And so another marker is a marker in the Sismont, Cobham, St. John vicinity of, I think that's your district, Bia, B, and that is
Keswick.
Yeah, that's the topic is Virginia Lee Murray, who got her start teaching as a demonstration teacher in that area. And we've been working with the St. John Family Life Fitness Center and the members of that board, and also the church, to find a location. And there's some kind of coordination to be had around the master planning and the renovations that they're doing out there. So we are not ready to install it yet, but I have been in touch with folks out there to try to get that to all line up. I think those are the 4 markers that are, really moving along. We have an idea for a 5th marker in the Scottsville district, the topic being the Glendower School. And just, for various reasons of sort of prioritizing, actually looking at getting the program up and running, I think that topic has maybe not moved along in the same trajectory as the other markers, but it, like I said, we sort of have a running list of ideas that we could move on in the future as we work to hopefully, build a more permanent program. And I don't have any, any more update, but, if other committee members want to weigh in.
Is there anybody else that'd like to add to that? Okay, next committee, demolition and documentation. I documented the house at Stockton Ridge, which was Misfit. It's just a vernacular farmhouse that is going to be, I guess, replaced by another property. All the historic fabric was out of the house. It's been a rental. The last time it was updated or renovated was in 1977. So it lost all of its charm, but the significance of that property with neighbors such as Mirador, Seven Oaks, Greenwood Farm, Casa Maria, it's right in the middle of all those fine estates. Misfit was owned by Chiswell Dabney Langern, who owned Mirador. He was going to move to Misfit after leaving Mirador to a niece, and it burned down. So the original house there at Stockton Ridge, which was Misfit, is no longer there, and there's nothing really historic on that property except for this vernacular farmhouse. And then we have, through that whole list of demolitions, only 2 seem to be historic, and that was the Stockton Ridge Place, which is the house at Misfit that I just discussed. And then there's 2 more, 1225 Apple Tree Lane, which is a stone house. I know the owners of that property. That house has been gutted. The previous owner gutted it and was going to renovate it and never did. So it sat gutted for quite a while. I don't think there's anything in it. I think in our Stevens and Company history files, we have floor plans, and we can go and obviously document it. I'll have to see who the architect is of that house, but it's right near the tennis courts. Apple Tree Lane, after you go down Tennis Drive, taking a left on Apple Tree Lane, it backs up to the new hard courts and a putting green. And the other one is where is it? Rue Pocket Lane, which is near Mint Springs. And we're waiting on, I guess, Chris from the owners of Apple Tree Lane and Rue Pocket Lane to get in touch with us.
That's correct. Yeah. Waiting on responses.
So those are the 2 up and coming one, Apple Tree Lane and Rue Pocket, which is I'm not familiar with, but I know where it is.
Question. Are we still dealing with the restrictions as far as only one person can go document a building?
I believe so. If Margaret, is that correct?
More than one
Chris?
person can go document a building. It just needs to be publicly notified if more than one committee member goes to document the said building or property. We just need to follow the FOIA requirements of more than one committee member going out to the site. So there I guess there isn't restriction per se. It's just following the FOIA requirement.
To clarify, it's more than one subcommittee member, right? That's
correct.
The thing we're running up against. We have such small subcommittees that 2 constitutes a quorum, and therefore 2 can't go. I don't know if there's a way around that. Like if we just don't have subcommittees, but we have sort of like people that do the documentation. I don't think it's very safe to send
Right.
alone.
Also difficult to measure a building with one person. I mean, if you think about
It's a 2-person job.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, Ross, when that comes through, I would like to visit those with you if we can figure out around that rule.
Okay.
Excuse me for, is it okay to just say something? Would it be
Yeah, by
okay
all means.
for a committee member and maybe a staff member to go there? That would not violate your FOIA requirements.
That's true. We were, before COVID, it was very helpful to have our subcommittee members who were going to go out and do that documentation, because it was difficult for staff to find the time to do that.
I mean, I would offer myself also. I'm the liaison. I'm not I guess, official committee member unless they consider me an official committee member.
You are not a voting member,
Right.
So you would not count towards the quorum issue. That's accurate. Yeah.
And if I'm available, I would do that.
Okay. All right. Great. So
You'd have to tell me what to do.
So Chris, I'll wait for you to get in touch with me regarding those 2 pending permits.
Yes, that's correct. And like I was saying earlier, if more than one subcommittee member wants to go out, we just need to coordinate that.
So how do we go about coordinating that?
So you just or it's somewhat the usual coordination between the property owner and the subcommittee. And then once a date was settled, it had to be 3 days prior to allow Carolyn to be able to post it on the county calendar. So it's just that notification that needs to be.
Okay, so
Met.
once we make an appointment, then I can contact you and tell you who will be joining me?
Right, long as it's 3 days prior. So
Okay, all right.
you
Well, we'll
contact them
figure out how to
for
work.
Monday and you want to meet Friday, that's enough time to post it on the calendar, for example.
Okay,
I do have a question. I noticed on your list you had 701 Club Drive. Is that a property you will be visiting?
no, that is not a historic structure.
I know, that's why I was gonna say, save your time.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I don't know why Keswick's name, their LLC is Historic Hotels of Albemarle. But that is not one of the historic structures on our
No.
list, so.
It's an administrative building that is associated but not next to Keswick Hall. Keswick Hall is the historic building or part of it, the Crawford part. But the one that was demolished was the administrative building. Nothing
Right.
historic about that. That I can guarantee.
Yeah, out of this list that was put together, there were the 3 historic properties were the Stockton Ridge Place, which is located in Greenwood. That documentation has, the site visit's been done, and I'll have the documentation finished this week. So the 2 pendings are Apple Tree Lane in Farmington and Rue Pocket Lane, which is on Mint Springs Road, west of Crozet. It's right where Mint Springs Road and Railroad Avenue split. So those are the only 2 pending documentations we need to do.
Okay, thank you.
No, I'll jump in to explain that list because you're new. That demo list includes demo permits that were submitted for any and all properties within the county, and the demo and documenting subcommittee reviews that list and identifies any ones that they deem kind of historic or has historical significance, and those are documented within that list. So it's a larger list that sometimes does not have historic properties within it, depending on the time frame.
Yeah, a lot of times the list goes out and I look up all the tax map parcels and kind of investigate to see what it's there. Usually Chris is very helpful and kind of outlines it already the best he can. So we can pick and choose what is worthy of documenting. A lot of times Chris will send the specifics of individual properties, and we determine whether it should be documented amongst the committee, which is Ed Lay, Carter Montague, myself, and there's a fourth member. Is that correct, Chris?
That's correct. I'm blanking on it's one of our newer subcommittee members.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. No. It's,
Peter Daniel. Is that correct?
Okay, Peter's on it, right? Okay. So that's the update for our demolition and documentation that I know of. So, does anyone else have anything to add?
Are real estate emails being sent out? I haven't gotten one in, I don't know how long. I don't know if I'm not getting them or if they're not being sent.
I haven't gotten any.
I noticed that as well. I've been meaning to follow up with Vivian to see, because I checked the email box and I hadn't seen any of the list server emails. So I'm not sure if it's just a slowdown in sales that kind of accompanies this kind of time period of more sales during the spring and fall, and then kind of that slowdown in the wintertime that I've noticed. past 2
There
years.
should be
when I was
some
going-
though. I bet.
Yeah.
Ross, you may want to check and see if your auto search is still functional.
Okay, I will do that. Yeah, because I haven't gotten anything in quite a while. That's a good point, Carter.
Yeah, it's probably been October since I noticed it. It does seem a little odd, even with the usual slowdown.
Okay, I'll double check that search this evening.
Okay.
All right, so on to anybody know of any new owners of historic properties or threatened properties to watch, or recent demolished structures, or any activity of that nature?
I know in my area of Scottsville, there were new owners came of a place, Old Hall, that's on Harrison.
right.
Street there.
Yep.
The couple.
And also the Tipton House as well has new owner.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I guess the Tipton one would have been last summer, probably like August. I want to go and say August or September. But the Old Hall, that was a recent one that was changed. I want to say in November, if not December. And there's some other buildings in Scottsville I know are under contract by that are on Valley Street. Again, I'm not sure how much is in our purview there, but some of the local things I know, Old Hall stands out, and then some structures on Valley.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you.
And then, of course, there's that whole development, that's been in the news down in Scottsville. Is that all in Scottsville proper?
Yes, it's like some of the land that's adjacent to the old tire factory there. I know they had a public meeting over that. I believe that advances to a vote of some nature.
Yeah, I think they deferred the vote that night, but it'll go forward.
Yes, yeah, I think, don't quote me on this per se, but I think there were things like initially it was a request for a special permit to exceed some of the housing that was there. And I'd have to do some more homework about that. But as far as like historic ones, yeah, I'd say just the Old Hall purchase. And then the old Switch building, which was the old operator switch building that was purchased in Scottsville. And then another one on Valley Street, two on Valley Street. So.
One thing we talked about, and Ed, you might have done more recently, but we still have this Dunlora situation that we need to figure out how we can look into this a little bit closer. Southern Development is buying Dunlora, and I don't know the state of the house, but I think it would be important for us to kind of try to get back there and evaluate it. Chris, that you haven't seen anything as far as or Margaret, anything as far as a demolition permit?
I had spoken with someone from Southern Development after the last time the topic came up. I can look for that correspondence and update everyone on that. I don't have it at my fingertips, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I think at that point they really weren't in control of the property yet, and so they couldn't help with providing access at that point.
Okay. I think it might have closed, but I'll double check, and I can
Definitely
check the
closed.
deeds.
I saw some
Right.
email exchange that was, two interesting things, and I think it's worth airing. One was that Southern Development said essentially that the house was unsalvageable, which we all can, look at that differently. Almost anything salvageable. The second was something that I thought, worth stating, that it was something to the effect of, well, we wanted more density and we didn't get it. And had we gotten it, maybe we could have talked about saving it. And I think that's a kind of crummy statement if that's true. And just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Margaret, if you could check that communication, I'm happy to call Frank Bailiff, the president, at Southern Development and talk with him and try to invite us to have a look at it. Even as a group.
Yeah, I think that's what I recall from the email, that they hadn't yet purchased it, but they would be open to allow access when they kind of did.
Well,
kind of look through it.
The agent that had it listed recorded it as a sale. I have not checked the deeds, but I'll try and check the deed to see if it's been recorded. It might be a kind of a deferred purchase situation, but I think they've closed on it. But I think that's something really worth following up. I mean, that's a very significant Albemarle County house in many respects. And I think, I'm always leery to be a preservation police, but we really should see if we can have a tour of it.
So my email says that they would not own the property until spring.
Okay.
And someone from the office would contact me about documentation at that time.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess let's mark our calendars and check on them in spring. And if they do anything in the meantime, we'll certainly hear about it. But
There's
let's
some
really
other buildings
keep
there
our
that are pretty historic as well, not just the main house. There's some, I don't know what they were, but ancillary buildings that definitely have some age to them.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of structures there to be documented or looked at. And, the earlier we can get involved with this, maybe the more we can get done. Anybody know of any other issues? Here's another thing that kind of I worry about. I drive on Garth Road every day, and the Jones family owned all those farms on Garth Road. There's Ingleside, Inglecrest, and Ingle Ridge. The Hafners own Ingle Ridge, but in Ingleside and Inglecrest, Ingle Ridge is owned by Crutchfield, and that barn roof has peeled off quite a while ago. I mean, again, I don't know what we can do about these things, but it's certainly going to sit there till it starts leaking profusely.
Ross, I had one. When you have a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm somewhat familiar with the property, but not really with the home. But Whitegate Farm, I don't know if that's one that's on your radar.
That too. I mean, that's really a good point.
Yeah, because they're actively developing that property, and I don't think the plans are to save that home. I can't see that home from the road, and I really don't know much about it, but I'm certain it's I've always been really curious about it as a personal thing, but that's something to watch out for, I think, and just keep on your radar.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jenny. That property, the gate has always been closed, and it's all overgrown, and there's a lot of farm equipment back there, but that's a good point. That's something that we need to look in as well. I know Vito Chetta is the architect for that project, and I know Charlotte Damon, who's a real estate broker agent, is involved in the ownership of that. And I will check with Charlotte Damon on that property.
Great. And I guess I've always been curious because the gate is closed and it is very overgrown, but it seems really interesting. And I imagine there could be, structures associated with the main house that could be historic in nature as well.
Yeah, that and Dunlora are two future developments that we need to have a look at these structures. And you know, it's just interesting when they go up for approval. Was there any discussion of these structures during this process?
I can't speak for Dunlora, but for Whitegate Farm, they're just in the initial stages. And so things are, you know, still there's a lot of moving parts, and there's not been any public hearings or anything finalized. I think typically I would expect that, at least in the case of Whitegate Farm, you know, there'd be some acknowledgement as far as the process goes on. But so far I haven't heard that mentioned, but there's only just been there's been 2 community meetings, and which is like really the very first step in the process, and that hasn't come up.
Right.
At least for Whitegate Farm. I can't speak about Dunlora.
There's a site plan
Right.
online, or at least conceptual.
Yeah.
There is,
But
yeah.
I don't really
Yeah,
know what I'm
that's-
looking at.
And if that's Whitegate, they're coming back again for another community meeting. So that means there's been, you know, a change of substance, which would either they've asked to, or, you know, could be required to come back and, you know, talk about it again with the community. And that's still just a very early stage for them, where they'll keep working with staff and as it moves through. So, but what I've seen, that doesn't show the home saved or any other structures.
I think that's accurate. I'll take another look at that submittal and see if we can add some comments in there. Dunlora was it just falls under a subdivision. There's, you know, without a historic preservation ordinance, we don't have any way to protect that. I hate to put a stop on the discussion, but it's 5:37, and I want to remind you that I did invite him to talk with the subcommittee, and we've got limited time, and we're past.
Okay. All right. Well, let's stay on top of, you know, the Whitegate Farm and Dunlora. Those are some threatened and important structures. So our next Historic Preservation Committee meeting will be held virtually February 28th. And anybody have any other announcements that they'd like to make? Okay, well, I'll call for adjournment of this committee meeting. Everybody stay safe and don't slip on the ice.
Thanks, Ross.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll stay on for the subcommittee.
Hi, Kim. Oh, you're muted.
Hey.
For joining us. You can see we ran a little bit over.
Sorry about that. It's been a while since everyone was together. So just a quick recap. Everybody, I asked Kim to join us just to give us a little overview of the process that she went through to get her new programs before the board, to help us know what's in store for the subcommittee and the work we've got for the markers. So unless anybody has anything else to say at the beginning here, I think we just turn it over to Kim. Let Kim get started.
Thanks, Margaret. So yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm realizing, you know, that there might be some parallels, but that a lot of it, you know, could be different, because this was a really big project, and we actually ended up having 14 proposals to the board for different projects and programs. But I thought what I'd do is just kind of give you an overview of, you know, all the steps we went through with public engagement. And again, it sounds like maybe you already did some of that with the Community Remembrance Project, and I'm not really familiar with what you've already done or how much you might need to do. So I'll just talk through the process we went through, and you know, the different tools that we used and the steps of bringing these projects to the board. And then hopefully there'll be some elements of that is useful to you as you move forward with your project. So I'll share a few slides, and Margaret, you can also just feel free to tell me if there are things that are, not really going to be relevant to this group, and I can kind of skip ahead. But I think we'll just go through it at high level pretty quick. So are you seeing my full screen slides?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this project was about developing strategies for improving stream health and water quality in the county. And like I said, it was a bit different from what you're doing. And also I wanted to mention that, I don't know which of these steps is required. And when I started working with community engagement, and they were really excited about a lot of these new tools. So we did a lot. And I think, we may need some direction from the higher level of like what's actually required versus, what might just be extra.
Kim, can I ask a question real quick? Can you explain, just sort of kind of frame, is the Natural Resources Committee a parallel to the Historic Preservation Committee? And are you the Margaret of that committee? Are you a staff that coordinates with that committee?
I am, yes.
Okay. So that
but
committee is volunteer appointed members of the public.
Yep. Yes, they are.
Okay.
They weren't really involved. Well, some of them were involved in this project, but not, I think, in the same way that this committee is involved. I'll mention how they were involved when we get to that point. But it was a bit different.
Okay.
So in any case, we did a lot, and it might be, up to your staff or your group to figure out, how much of this is needed. But anyway, this project started before I started in 2020, and they started with a public input process with 3 meetings with stakeholder groups that would be involved or interested in this topic. So one was the conservation community, one was with the farming community, and one the development community. And they realized it was so big, they started working with the development community. So the part that we focused on was the rural area. And the reason that I mentioned that is that some of the projects and topics were a bit sensitive. So that was part of the reason we did a lot of community engagement to really understand, how we could work with the rural communities. So we laid out this timeline for the year for 2020. And even before this, there was a lot of like program development, project development, materials, and forming our team and the website. So quite a bit of work before this year. But then we broke the year into these 4 quarterly stages where we outlined how we would work with the public and bring information to the board. So I'll talk through each of these stages just really quickly. And so the first stage was really the discovery stage. And the focus of that was to build a shared understanding of, issues around stream health and opportunities we might have. We used all these different tools, the website and the public input site, which I'll direct you to in a minute. We reached out to so many different stakeholder groups and known people through the email lists, but also we send a postcard to rural area residents to really try to reach as many people as possible. And form these email groups. Had a kickoff and a questionnaire where the participants could choose how they wanted to engage and what level of participation. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then we developed a webinar series with all different stream health topics and had just different community members from different organizations presenting on their area of expertise. So in terms of the participant roles, this was just, it's pretty self-explanatory. How essentially letting folks choose how they wanted to participate in any of these categories. And then that was, how we would engage with them moving forward from their choice. You can, if it's helpful, if this is something you want to do about sharing more information with the community, there's an opportunity potentially to have a web page. Ours was under Learn More About Stream Health. But then in order to communicate and really work with the community, we also developed a public input site. And that's really helpful and also really easy. So you can, create questionnaires and post videos or post information as it comes up. So then in the second stage, the define stage, we really focused on identifying challenges and different strategies that would be of interest. We developed this stakeholder work group and worked with them through Zoom to define a vision and goals for Stream Health, and ultimately to define and categorize the strategies that we were ultimately going to bring to the board and later develop into proposals. All through the process, of course, continuing that feedback loop with the public. In the strategy development, we're really looking at all the different constraints and considerations. There's so many good ideas from the work group, like 40 different strategies. And so we had to work through all of these different things to sort of determine what would actually work. And then ultimately we came up with these 3 categories to help the board and the public understand, how we were going to work and develop different strategies and as regulations, voluntary opportunities or essentially educational programs. The third stage, we were reviewing and refining and then the strategies and developing them into proposals. We had a board work session where we got some feedback from the board and continued, of course, that feedback loop again with the public. And then we really started focusing more internally with our team and with staff on developing proposals, final proposals to bring to the board. And then in this stage 4, continuing that work with the focus on providing those final proposals to the board, primarily working internally with our team and a few close partners from the community, scoping out each proposal in terms of budget and staffing and how long it would take for that to come to fruition. And then we had another board work session where we shared those final proposals with, of course, the budget impacts and a complete recommendation for a proposed implementation schedule. So this is a little hard to see on a screen, but this is sort of an overview of all the different proposals. Some of these, like I said, are projects and some are more programs like the one it sounds like you're developing. But for all of them, we outlined for the board existing staff time, additional staff that would be needed long-term for the program to continue, time frame for development of the project or program, and the cost as well, whether that would be recurring or not. And then we shared, this is alignment, how well it aligns with some of the goals and strategies of the comp plan and some of our other county plans as well. And so this is kind of what our final proposal looked like. A lot of information about the background and program development, including the actual costs for staff people if needed, and the realization time frame and what the demand would be on existing staff time, and then outlining, program development, implementation, and outcomes as well for each of the 14 proposals. So now I think we're in the implementation stage. In December 1st work session, if you want to look closer at any of those proposals, they're on the board agenda site. We received support for our overall recommendation from the board and are able to start with some of the projects, working through budgeting on some of the other projects, and developing an implementation schedule overall for all of them. So that's pretty much it. And, in the future, some of the projects, if they involve ordinance updates, will require future public hearings as well and additional public input as they are more further developed. So that is it. And I will stop sharing.
Thanks, Kim.
Happy to answer any questions. I don't.
It's excellent. It's exactly the model we followed under the University of Virginia Institute for Engagement and Negotiations to build a memorial to enslaved laborers. It was really community driven. And that's why it's just been a little bit frustrating for me because it's been so contained to the committee. And I think at this point, I'm seeing the committee, probably the role we would have is to work closely with the HR and to get the specs of the marker and the installation and that part. But the rest of it, it's really a larger body of just it's community driven. It's just it's excellent. And where can we find this outline?
So I can share the presentation with Margaret if you want my slides. We don't have a chat, so I can't link you to our public input site, but it's just.
I was taking screenshots, and so I was like, no,
Oh,
just
you were.
share these slides, please.
I'll share the
Yeah.
slides as a PDF.
Because that was my role, the ambassadorship role, to make the, to have that, to keep that community engagement, that community connection, because we wouldn't have been able to do it without the community.
This is publicinput.com/streamhealth to see the public input site. And yeah, there's so many tools there, and our public engagement communications and public engagement office also oops, wrong one, helped tremendously with all of that, developing everything really. So they're likely to be supportive of something depending on what level of engagement you feel is needed.
That's really great, Kim. Are we going to get cut off at 6? Are we limited to 6?
About to jump in, 8 minutes. So yeah, 6 is hard cut off.
I have a question, and I've been thinking about this, and I, appreciate Kim and Margaret and Chris's thoughts as well. I wonder if it would be beneficial to, rather than try to fully bake a program to present to the Board of Supervisors, to present a plan for engagement to lead to a program. And I see Diane nodding enthusiastically, because I think we need, to do it right, it needs this level of community engagement, and in a similar manner as how you built your program, Kim. And I just really think we need the assistance of that staff person and coordination within the county, and to do it justice, it needs to have that same level of, maybe not so many initiatives, but it's almost like you said, like a mini initiative of of the whole entire Stream Health would be, a mini initiative of our historic preservation program is a local marker program. So, that's just been something I've been kind of thinking about in terms of like what we would actually be, the ask to the Board of Supervisors could be building a program with community engagement to begin, and budget, and, et cetera, et cetera.
So let me just see if I understand, put it in different words. Instead of presenting a proposal for a marker program, the proposal would be to you would need staff time to initiate a public engagement project to figure out what the marker program should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could build some parameters, but, propose sort of like, in the same way that in Kim's project, she, I think, started with the question of what do we want? And I think we could also approach a community engagement session with that question in mind. What does the community want in a local marker program? And get input.
We should, this is what we have. This is what has been done. With what we've done, we would gain input, garner input from the public based on that. And some of the questions we've been talking about all along, would we start in one district versus the other, or, you know, have everyone have input from various districts or communities to say, you know, how they would drive the program? But I think this is what we've done, show what we've done, and to give them some basis of you know, to some latitude to build from there, to go from there. So, oh, it just sounds so good.
I think we present that in a way where it was, you know, a series of, you know, kind of over a 6-month period, you know, 4 meetings or, you know, something like that. And then there's a, you know, if we're trying to talk nuts and bolts about the staff.
But don't start so large. Don't overwhelm them. Just, you know, get a basic feel for, based on what we've done, what it is you
right. But we have to present a concrete plan.
Yeah, but we'll get there to the concrete plan. I'm just saying that we've got to start engaging them early. I don't think we want to tell them this is what the plan looks like. We want them to tell us what the plan.
Who is them?
The public.
No, I'm talking about what we would be I'm talking about what are we presenting to the Board of Supervisors, right?
Oh, I see.
What's the ask? You know, and I don't know what it is. I haven't given any thought to that, but you know, we would be outlining a process to ultimately get to a local marker program, but not a, you know.
And I'm saying even for that piece, that would still entail some public engagement to present before this is what we are saying, the public wants. This is what we're presenting before the Board of Supervisors based on public input. But I don't know.
So if the subcommittee is at a point, subcommittee or committee is at a point where they can't move forward anymore because you need more resources, and I guess that's a question. Are you there?
Depending on how we want to do it, I think we are, right? I mean, if we want to just make our local marker program and model it on another community and have some structure and have some rules, I mean, I think there's still some things we would want. That is an option, but I don't think that's the program, you know, that at least Diane and I are talking about, where it lacks that community engagement up front, not just in community engagement around who submits marker topics, but really community engagement in crafting the program, which it sounds like, you know, the example from the Natural Resources Committee was so much upfront engagement about what they were actually trying to achieve. But I think we are kind of at an impasse where I don't, you know, I don't know. You know, it's there's just a lot of constraints.
Pete, did you have a comment?
Jump in real quick. We have about a minute.
Might be
we always get.
Until if you were frozen.
I wanted to ask him, can you hear me?
Cutting in and out. Try again.
I wanted to ask Kim, on one of her slides, she talked about plans. I was curious about that work, whether Kim could share anything additional about that process of defining there is a comp plan, and how does that align with your initiatives and your focus? My thought was that may help us. I'm sorry, I think we're out of time. I don't know.
Just one, sorry, Kim, I'm going to butt in here, but so this whole conversation was making me start to think that maybe this is where the discussion about the marker program stops until we make it part of the overall discussion of how the historic preservation plan is it's updated with the comprehensive plan work, and it's just one of the programs, becomes one of many, like Kim had on her her spreadsheet there.
Yes, Margaret, we should think bigger. We should think about a public engagement strategy around the update to the comp plan. I knew that's where you were going with that. Thank you.
Well,
I'm sorry, everybody, but you have to say goodbye.
I think that was a good ending point.
Very inspiring.
Yeah, good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Sorry.
We'll continue. Bye.